Hey, welcome to the Ron Johnson Discipleship Podcast.
We're thrilled that you decided to tune in and spend some time with us today, and we're going to be connecting some dots between real life and the Lordship of Jesus Christ, especially as it relates to leadership development and the larger issue of integrity. And I guess that it causes me to pause here because this, of course, we do these podcasts in succession. We just came off 3 podcasts that we did with Trevor Loudon, which I thought were really excellent. And in fact, I was just watching the last one this morning as we were getting ready to post it. And it kind of sets the stage, I guess, for what we're talking about now, because, in that last episode, he was talking about how do we go forward from here, and really creating a sense of urgency that we need people to stand up and to get involved. Yeah. And I think, you and I talk a lot about in the local church, we're dealing with the issue of making disciples, raising up leaders. Our vision at Living Stones is to grow people and then multiply leaders. Right. And so we get involved in people's lives, and we hear the need. Even now, we need good people to run for public office. Yeah. We need good people to run for school boards. We need good people to lead. Yeah. And there we get back to the crux of the problem.
Yeah, I think sometimes, and maybe you're like me, you hear about these massive issue, Marxism invading America and just like secularism and just this whole, Washington, D.C. issue, global issues. And you're just like, what can I do? Like, you feel so small in the middle of all this. And I love the topic we're talking about today, because there's very much actionable steps to be filled, and we want to help you connect the dots. Is what we're recognizing as leaders. We as talking to people, talking to other leaders. There's a leadership vacuum in every arena of life right now. Yeah. So I've been trying to convince people, like, whatever void you're missing in your job, in your business, your leadership, in the church, at the end of the day, it always comes to people, lack of leadership. Right. Lack of high capacity leaders who's able to do the job.
And sometimes, in the church, we're all guilty of this at times. You reach you feel like you hit a ceiling, or you're like, man, I don't know what else to do, or what else can we do? And then we just say, well, we need revival, or we need breakthrough.
Which is true. We always want revival, right?
We don't minimize, but my point is we feel the last person that we want to deal with, us personalized, the last person I want to deal with is me. Yeah. And there's that funny cartoon, we have found the enemy and it's me, right. kind of idea. Yeah, it's always easier to say something outside needs to happen, when really many times something inside needs to happen. Yeah. And even on revival, the first place for revival to start is me.
In our own hearts, right? Absolutely.
But I guess but that's an important thing, because what it does is I guess it makes me proactive. If the problem is always outside of us, we throw up our hands and we just go, well, I'm a victim and something has to happen out there. But really, this is proactive. This message is what can I do to change, and what can I do to become a better leader? And I think that's where we want to go for the next 6 or 7 weeks.
And I think this is not just like a self-help message. This is a reformation message in my own heart. Yeah. Because I'm seeing practically we got leaders, conservative leaders who love our countries, are saying, hey, we need more help. We need more leaders. We see church leaders, pastors, and business owners, kingdom business owners, who are saying, hey, we need more help. I have this vision. Yeah. We have a great infrastructure, but where are the high capacity? Where are the honest people? Where are the integrous people who is going to help us go in these steps? So to make these impact that we want to make, we do need to start with people. So this is not just some theoretical message. This is a very practical message.
Well, and you and I, and Living Stones is all about this. We're a church that really is about getting into the weeds with people and helping them grow. And of course, you've been, doing that with our marketplace ministry, meeting with individual business owners, and we have a lot of them at our church. Yeah. And some of them are coming to the realization, sometimes painfully, that they're the biggest problem to their business growing. Yeah. And what we're talking about is generally not that they lack competence, because that's the way they do what they do. They're good at what they do. Right. It's not that they lack collaboration, because many of them have to work with other people, other business partners, right? So, but we can all grow in all those areas. But so they got competence, they got collaboration. But the third area that's critical is the character area. And talk about that a little bit. I mean, how do sometimes we short circuit, our desire to grow through a lack of character? How would that flesh out?
And just go back real quick, Dr. Henry Cloud, this book Integrity, which some of you guys might have read.
Great book. We're doing a book endorsement right now in terms of this book.
We're doing a deep dive into a lot of these principles and trying to make it to life, because these principles have really come to life for me. But, he talks about to be successful, to really have a true impact, which is what leadership is. So you want to have a great impact in the world, right?
Right.
First of all, you need competence. You need to be good at your job, and this is the area in which a lot of young people wants to have at least great success. I'm just like, but are you really good at this job?
If you're running a restaurant and the food's terrible, you're not going to be in business very long.
At the very least, know how to cook, right? Or find someone who really knows how to cook, right? You need to have a level of competency. If you
let's go back to government. Sometimes people say, I'm going to run for governor. Have you ever held office before?
Yeah. Have you ever run anything before?
And we always encourage people, you might have a passion to run for office, but start at a local level, start at something small, and then develop competence.
Go study. Go dig into it. Be really good at it first. That's just the beginning, but a lot of people don't even have competence. So competence, and the second step is collaboration, which is be able to build alliances.
You're not going to be able to do anything great if you don't learn how to work with other people.
Yeah, you just realize on your own, you're going to always be limited. You
go back to the restaurant. You got to have someone that's great with people and taking orders. You got to have someone that makes good food. You got to have someone that can run the book. I mean, you're going to have a diverse group of gifts. Working in collaboration.
And your restaurant's a great example. You can be the best chef in the world and not have a good restaurant. I think we've seen enough TV restaurant health shows to realize that you can be great at cooking your food for one person, but then to replicate that, to have a great service, to have a great menu, market income.
To have any kind of a massive impact anywhere in our culture, which is what we want, you have to work with other people.
You got to know how to work with collaborate people. And then the last part, and Dr. Henry Cloud said those are dime a dozen.
So you can grow. There are some very smart people, and there are people that can build alliances.
And he says the third thing is you need character. So to not mess up 1 and 2.
Yes.
And
in other words, if you don't have character, at some point or another, the whole thing is going to blow up, because it will just you'll implode.
You implode upon the greatest success you might have at that moment. Without character, you will collapse even.
And we see this all the time. You got the hard charging type A successful business guy that's climbing the ladder. But in the process, his marriage suffers, his home life suffers. He might end up having an affair. He then might end up having to try to hide things, and before you know it, because of his lack of character, all the competence in those other areas don't really matter, because his life's blown up.
Right. All it does is expose. The more successful you are in people's eyes, the more your cracks are exposed.
Yeah.
And then that's what happens.
So character is critical.
Yeah. And he calls it integrity here, but he really defines integrity different than how we normally think about integrity.
And maybe you can relate to this. When I think of integrity, and when I first read the book, I kept thinking, well, I've read a book on integrity before. But in my mind, integrity just meant that I can trust you because Andrew is an honest guy.
I'm an honest person. I don't cheat. I don't steal.
You're going to pay your taxes. Yep. If you're supposed to show up at 8:00, you're going to be there at 8:00. You have integrity.
Right.
But Cloud just kind of he starts there, because that certainly is a baseline.
That's the baseline for integrity. Yes.
But his understanding is much more complex.
Well, he says he knows many people who are good, solid people, who try to do the right thing and try to, never cheat, steal, tell lies or anything like that, but still do not have a great impact. He's wondering why.
Their leadership is still, it hits a lid. Yeah. And again, I thought the book was phenomenal, because he talks about, I love the illustration. He talks about a boat. When you look out up behind a boat, the motor leaves a wake. Yeah. And you see where the waves ripple out. And he goes, if you're an expert on the water, you can tell when there's a problem with your engine because of the wake that it leaves, or a problem with the boat itself. And he said a wake has two sides. Number one is the task side. Yeah. Number two is the relational side. Yeah. And so in every, as leaders, we have the job that we do, the mission we're accomplishing or whatever, but then there's the relational side of it as well. In other words, are we really good in the way we treat people and the way that, people that work with us, that come in contact with us? Do we leave a good wake? In other words, we get things done, but we also get things done in a way that causes people to thrive.
Well, you asked some good questions here. I thought that he asked that. That's really good.
Yeah, let's pause here. And,
you want to consider the wake you leave. So,
well, I've said this before, in marriage.
Yeah.
The best question we can ask about Christian marriage is, and I'll use you as an example, is Debbie, your lovely wife, is she a better person as a result of being married to you?
Yeah.
Is she growing? Is she more like Jesus? Is her relationship with you, has it caused her to be more like Jesus because of her close, intimate contact with you? And I could ask the same with my wife, Marion, but here's some questions that he asked. In the people side of things, there's going to be results just like the task side. He says, are people more trusting after working with you? That's a great question. Has their trust level grown up, or are they more guarded?
Yeah.
Are they more fulfilled as people? In other words, have they grown as a result of being associated with us? Do they feel better about themselves and working with others? In other words, have they grown to where they love themselves more? They have a greater appreciation for themselves. In other words, we help bring out a sense of identity.
Let me interject because I want you to go back to those questions. But in a different book called Multiplier, it talks about there was a prime minister in England, whatever, and then they said after you meet with this prime minister, I forgot his name, you feel like he's the smartest person in the world. Yeah. But then his rival. But they said when you meet with his rival, you leave feeling like the smartest person in the world. Wow. I thought that's a very good, interesting fact. When people leave your presence, are they so intimidated by you? Do they feel like, wow, I was in the presence of someone who's super smart, talented, whatever? Right. Or do they feel like, hey, you know what? I'm empowered. I'm stronger. I'm smarter.
So good. And again, obviously, who would you want to work for? The one that you go, oh, that guy's the smartest guy in the world, but makes you feel little and stupid. Or do you want to work with somebody who actually brings out your potential?
Right.
So, that's good. Excellent example.
Yeah.
How about this one? Did they learn from you and feel lifted up and encouraged? How about this? This is great. Were they stretched and inspired to become more than they were before they worked with you or for you? I love that one because that's that whole idea of growing people.
Yeah.
And this is what we're committed to. And we need to ask our people, when from being with us, working closely to us, did the stretching, sometimes you can be hard on someone and really point out their blind spots or their weaknesses and they leave feeling deflated.
Yeah.
Other times you're with someone that has such a knack, and I think this is a real skill that you have, pointing out, hey, this might be a blind spot or a weakness, but what are we going to do to grow through that? Right. And what's your plan? How can I help you?
Right. Anyone could call out the negative things in people's life. It doesn't take a lot of skill to do it, but to do it in a way that you feel like you're on their team. And that's part of what the first attribute. We'll talk about that later. But that's a skill set.
Yeah.
You have to learn, That's not just something that you're just born with.
And I love this. Did your relationship cause them to produce more? Yeah. In other words, we're all doing a job, that's usually what brings us together, right? We're being paid to do a job, or in a non-for-profit situation, we're a volunteer tribe of people with the same values who are trying to accomplish, whether it's reaching people for Christ or helping people set free. Yeah. The bottom line is, am I helping you to more effectively do what you do?
Yeah,
and that's been a big shift, I think, even for us here at Living Stones, is, our primary job is not to get the job done. Our primary job as leaders is to help focus on the people that we're responsible for serving and growing and helping them mature, because as they grow and they mature, they're going to be more effective. They're going to be more anointed. They're going to produce better fruit in their lives.
And that's a huge difference. Yeah. It sounds like, okay, they're just more people focused. No. This is a paradigm shift. Yeah. Because it's so easy for us to be, it's so easy for me to be task-oriented. I got a list of checklists for me to go lead a small group, for me to go write curriculum, write sermons, all those different things.
In a local church, there's more than enough to keep us busy.
But for me to shift my mindset, said, my focus is on people and growing people. And I would venture that if you have a kingdom business, you have a kingdom marketplace business, that should be your focus too. Even though, you got to sell furniture, you got to sell bagels, you got to sell air conditioners. I get all that. But that's it. You have to do that. I get it. But can you make your priority about building people? Because I'm telling you, as your business continues to grow, your limiting factor is always going to be people.
Wow.
People.
So if as you're the CEO or you're the entrepreneur, you're the leader of your business, what you're saying is don't just focus on selling more food, servicing more air conditioning units, whatever it is that you do. Really focus on your team primarily and help grow those people, help invest, care about their lives, and help them grow as a leader. If their personal capacity as a leader grows, their role in whatever they serve in your business is going to go off the charts. They're going to do their job better. They're going to be more satisfied. They're going to have a better impact on the people that they interact with, and it's just a win-win for everybody.
Well, this book talks about, he says he interviewed the wife of a mega CEO, like a Fortune 500 CEO.
Right.
And the wife said, you know what, in the day, my husband, his frustration has nothing to do with the business. He loved the business.
Right. He's very competent. He's got great collaboration skills.
But his frustration is always with people. People issues what drains him the most. And I've been chatting and talking with a lot of different business owner and whatever, and at the end of the day, it's the same thing. But even the church is the same thing. The frustration is not the work itself; it's the people. And when you start to recognize this, you realize, man, when I go into an organization, my question I first ask is always like, what is the limiting factor? What is the cap on it? Is it customers? Is it you're not producing enough whatever units? Is it the market reach? Is it marketing? And more I hear, the cap at the end of the day, as a company continues to grow. When you're small, it might be not that way, but as you continue to grow, it's always people. We need more highly capable leaders who can connect with people, who won't cause friction, who won't cause disruption. It's people. But Jesus said this. He says, the harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. Therefore, pray for the Lord of harvest to send more workers. As Jesus recognized at the end of the day, the leadership, the limiting factor is still leadership.
And I think about what causes a production drain in a company. Many times it's because the guy's marriage is struggling, or he's got a child that's really out there. Or I think locally in the church, what causes most pastors to just feel so drained and to want to quit what they're doing? It's not that they don't love the gospel. It's not that they don't love preaching. It's not that they don't love people. It's that usually it's it's all the one another's the Bible talks about, right? Why do we think the Bible's so full of love one another, be at peace with one another, serve one another? Because just what you said, at the end of the day, the greatest stressors and the greatest drain on any entity, organization, is people problems. And so we this is huge, and that all goes back to character and really talks about integrity, a larger issue of integrity.
Developing, focusing on not just what they do, but what's in them. And that leadership pipeline will continue developing people with the right integrity versus just saying, well, you got the job done. I don't care how you did it. No. How you did it is probably more important than what you just did. And
I love what he says, the big question, when he's looking at, do we hire this person? And he'll go back, so if I'm going to hire you, I'll go back to your previous employer. And the question he asks is, would they want to do it again? In other words, if someone had a chance to hire Ron Johnson all over again, would they enthusiastically say, yes, that guy was amazing? Or would they go, would there be the hesitation? And that hesitation is usually a relational hesitation. Not so much a task hesitation. In other words, they might have been able to do the job, but no one wanted to be around them, or they were a bulldozer. They plowed over people.
Emotionally, you don't want to go through that again.
Or they were toxic. They made me feel stupid or whatever. But they might have been, like in sales, somebody could be an incredibly successful salesperson, but nobody wants to be around them because they're a jerk when it comes to their personal interactions with people.
Yeah, and I think on the flip side, you also, when a person's leaving your company, having that proper exit interview to say, okay, You might be leaving for whatever reason, but why are you leaving? And if we were offered this job and you were telling yourself 10 years ago, will you do this again? Why not?
Good. So the shoe goes on the other foot too.
And those are tough questions to ask. But if you really are oriented towards growth, which is what we're going to talk about later, and one integrity, then you want to ask those questions. I'm not saying you take everything they say as gospel, because there's biases and pains and hurt. I get all of that. But be willing to listen to the other side and say, okay, here's a blind spot I don't see. Are they willing to interact with me again? Go ask my wife, hey, will you be willing to marry me? If you knew what you knew today, that's a scary question. But man, wouldn't that answer tell you a lot about yourself, about your organization?
And you brought up a really good point, because some of these character faults that we have are really blind spots. We're not trying to be insensitive. We're not trying to be unrelational or whatever. It's a blind spot. And a blind spot is something we all have because we're fallen human beings. We're self-centered by nature. We need Jesus and the Holy Spirit to transform us. But that's why friendship is so important. And you brought out a point about your marriage, about Debbie. At this season of your life, you're realizing, what? She is a wife is one of our greatest assets, because they know us better than anyone. And if we're not defensive and insecure, and if we don't have bad character, and if we'll allow people who love us to really speak into our lives, we can see those spots. And then if we embrace that, okay, I need to change here, we can be proactive in growing.
Yeah. And the book Good to Great, it talks about Churchill and World War II.
Yeah.
So Churchill recognized that he's and this is when he was like taking on the Nazis himself. The United States has not get engaged. So he's out there, we're going to destroy Hitler and Nazi. He's fighting the war all by himself. And he's this charismatic leader. He recognizes my charisma could be a downfall for me. Because of my charisma, my force of personality, no one wants to give me the bad news. So even though on one hand he's hopeful, he's optimistic, he's vision setting, will win. On the other hand, he established a commission that he established a commission in a way that they will give him unfiltered news from the front line, because he says he cannot afford to get filtered news. He needs to know the truth. He needs to see every single blind spot, or else he cannot win this war.
He needs to face reality.
He needs to face reality.
And that's really, again, some of you, I know you, I can tell already, I put that book up, you're like, Pastor, what was that book you showed? Well, here's the title. It's called Integrity: The Courage to Meet the Demands of Reality. It's by Dr. Henry Cloud. We think it's one of the finest books on leadership development that there are. Just such an amazing truth. That's why we're going to spend the next 6 weeks unpackaging the 6 components that he talks about.
And I think in short, he defines integrity as this. He defines integrity as the ability, having the infrastructure to be able to meet the demands of reality. He compares it to the way I think about it is like a spaceship re-entry into Earth.
Right.
You're going to hit all kind of atmospheric pressure and heat and all that kind of stuff. So when you design the hull of the space shuttle, you need to design it with enough integrity of
So the metal, how much
the pressure it can handle the heat, so that when it goes through re-entry, it will not explode and just disintegrate. And that's what he meant by integrity.
So our character is the same way.
Yeah.
If you're built to lead, for instance, you're going to lead in government. There's a certain metal that you need to have. You can't be thin-skinned. You have to be able to handle the pressures of people criticizing you, people maligning you, the pressure to cave in. I mean, so whatever it is that you're leading, there's a certain amount of competence. There's a certain degree of collaboration. Yeah. But then the metal, like you need to be built to withstand the heat. And here's the deal: the higher you ascend, the greater the heat.
Yep.
So when people talk about being a great leader and having a big impact, I use this for a practical example. So people say, Pastor, I really feel the call to pastor. I say, awesome. Here's what I would recommend: begin leading a life group in your home.
Absolutely.
Love people. If you can't love 6 people in your home well, then you're never going to love 600 people as a pastor well, or 60 people well. So you have to test your mettle, and the higher up the leadership mountain you ascend in whatever arena, the greater the heat and the greater stressors are put on you. And so that's where character comes in, because if you can't handle the heat, you're gonna melt, you're gonna blow up.
Absolutely. A phrase that we use a lot of time is, and not in a derisive way or a belittling way, but just we say welcome to ministry. Because inevitably, if you really start to love and care for people, there will be disappointments and hurts and painful moments.
Yeah.
And when we say walk on the ministry, it's not like, oh, this stinks to be you,
Yeah, no,
but it's basically saying, let me help you get new perspective.
In other words, let's face this reality of ministry with our eyes wide open.
Here's the reality. This is what ministry looks like.
Yeah.
Let's look through the Bible, through the lens of Jesus and what the pain he went through, and say, do you still want to be? Because if you don't realize it, if you have this, rose-colored lens perspective towards ministry, you are going to collapse real quickly, because that's not ministry is tough.
Yeah.
So walk in the ministry is saying, hey, I'm going to help you with reality, and this is what reality looks like.
And just by reminder, this is a discipleship podcast, which means our basic assumption is you're all called to minister and you're all called to ministry. So it's not like you just, I think I'll check out on that after this podcast. It's like, no, we need to grow our capacity. I think that's the point. Yeah. We need to grow our capacity as leaders to move in these dimensions, what he calls 6 essential qualities to determine your success in business, but in life in general. And maybe it'd be good for us just to, I don't know how we're doing time-wise here.
We're good.
But maybe just kind of review those 6 components, because he kind of broadens the definition on what character.
And just even begin, I'll tell you guys, I was telling pastors this, I read that book Integrity about 3 times about like a year ago or so. I was doing a book study with some guys. And I read it I thought I really understood, digest that, went through those 6 characteristics, and I'm like, I'm pretty good. And then the last couple months, I've been growing a lot, talking with a lot of people. Yeah. And I went back and read this book, and I realized I didn't really know what I was talking about in the past. I'm going through each of these, and I realized, wow, in every single of these areas, I am so lacking. But so on one end, it's like kind of discouraging, but on the other end, it's like really empowering.
Yes. Because
I realize I have so much room to grow in my leadership.
And I like this. When you face reality, it either causes you to bury your head in the sand, because sometimes the reality around us isn't pretty. If your marriage isn't good, you don't just go, hey, well, my marriage is better than that guy's marriage. That doesn't help. Face the reality. If things are ugly, then you can do one of 2 things: bury your head in the sand, or you can be empowered, as Pastor Andrew said. You can be empowered to now realize, hey, I see that here's a reality. How do I change it? What are some action steps that I take so that I can have a better marriage? What are some action steps I can take so that I can generate more sales, or have a better relationship with my children, whatever it is.
Right, absolutely. So this is meant not to be a discouraging message, but if you have the victim mindset, you will see this as discouragement. But if you have a victor's mindset, this is so empowering, because to change, to grow, to be more successful, to have more greater influence in our culture, in our government, everything we do is not out there. Right. Okay, it's within your control if you're willing to die to yourself, if you're willing to humble yourself and grow.
And growth is one of our core values at Living Stones for all of our people. We assume that you have an appetite to grow as a person, as a disciple, as a leader, as a husband, as a wife, whatever the situation is. So let me just touch on these 6 points, and then in the weeks to come, we're going to take each of these and spend an entire podcast really going deep on some of these points.
Some of these we could probably take a couple, but we won't, but they're not good.
Yeah. So the first one, I like this, the ability to connect authentically, which is the foundation for trust.
Which leads to trust,
if you can't connect at the heart level with the people that you're leading, serving, there's no trust there. And if there's no trust there, there's walls that are up like crazy, and you're going to have a lid over your life. Yeah. So we need to learn how to connect at the heart level with people.
And I think this is, okay, just saying that, I want to connect with people with a heart problem. To me, this is one of the hardest things, especially
if you're task-oriented.
You're task-oriented, and especially, I would say, for a lot of men. And for some ladies too, and some men might be really good at this. Right. But in my experience, men are really, and you think, I just connected with this person, and the other person walks away thinking he doesn't care about me.
Yeah, I wasn't even hurt.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. We're going to get into that in our next podcast.
Yeah.
Number 2, the ability to be oriented toward the truth, which leads to finding and operating in reality.
This is that blind spot we're talking about. Ooh. Your willingness to look at blind spot. They're emotional. I'll share a quick example for this. I operate a rental home, and for those who know me, my last renter was not a good situation. And then the reason when they left, it was a bad week.
Yep.
And the reason it was really on me, because I did not want to go and check. I should go check on the house every once in a while, but I don't. You know why I don't? Because I have some bad experience from previous renter. There was an emotional, painful pocket there that was unresolved.
So you just ignored it.
I
hoped everything was the best.
pretended hoping everything was bad. And when they moved out, suddenly I realized they had a pet there that they're not supposed to have. There was all these things done that's not supposed to have. And
so it was a disaster.
It was a disaster because I chose to not look at reality, and it came back to bite me.
Right.
So
look at our lives. That was a house.
Yeah.
But if you think of yourself as a house, what are the areas you choose just to turn your head away from, or the relationships, or the collaborative partnerships that you're not maintaining,
right?
And simply because you're not wanting to face the
because
truth.
I don't want to face. And just now I thought about 10 other realities. My unwillingness to go see a dentist to check on my teeth, even though I feel pain because I had such bad experience with it. It cost me thousands and thousands of dollars. Again, because I'm unwilling to face reality.
So you didn't go for the regular checkup.
And then
you had to get a crown.
Oh my gosh. I don't even want to talk about it. Even now, I'm But those are the things. Like, okay, teeth. But what about your marriage? How about your finance? You're like, I don't want to look at my bank account, and you're like, you have no idea how much debt you're in which you need to face reality. Right. I don't want to talk to my kids because whatever.
So the point is, that's an integrity
issue.
Because if you don't face reality, it's a lack of integrity that's going to come back and harm you.
Absolutely.
All right, number 3. The ability to work in a way that gets results and finishes well, which leads to reaching goals and profits and the mission. So some people are great starters, lousy finishers.
Yep.
And that's a character issue.
It's amazing character issue. And they're going to talk about, like, what does it mean to practice, like, delay gratification, so not impulsive, ready, aim, fire, which is a powerful thing I shared with the young adults the other day, because so many young people have great aspirations, but they either do too much or they're not focused. I mean, we'll get into all that.
How about grit? You're always going to run into obstacles and challenges, and things aren't always going to work out the way the instructional manual said.
Yep.
And at those times, the character says, you know what, I'm going to keep doing whatever it takes to get the results that I need to get, to press through. So that's a big one. Number 4, the ability to embrace, engage, and deal with the negative, which leads to ending problems, resolving them, or transforming them. That's kind of what you were just talking about. There's sometimes unpleasant discussions that need to be had. There's issues that need to be confronted.
This, to me, is probably one of the hardest for people to really embrace and say, I want to do. Because by definition, negative is negative, right?
Right. And we avoid negative things. We put them off. We procrastinate.
But be able to see. I remember I was listening to a podcast with, he's one of the founders of the Ritz-Carlton, who has, like, off-the-chart hospitality. And I forgot the guy's name. I should give him credit. Yeah. But he basically says we see every single negative incident with a customer, whether they're complaining about whatever, as an opportunity to build loyalty.
Wow.
Right? Someone was upset because their bed sheets were dirty or whatever. Right. Give them a brand new room, upgrade their room, whatever. Give them a great dinner meal, whatever. Build loyalty using that, just to turn that around.
Right. So instead of ignoring it, just saying, these people are ungrateful.
Yeah, right.
We don't need customers like this anyway. Right. How do we face what they're saying, figure out what element of truth is there, and then turn it into something transformative.
Absolutely.
All right. Number 5, the ability to be oriented towards growth, which leads to increase. Now, we've talked about this quite a lot, but talk about that as it relates to, a disciple, and even here at Living Stones, this whole idea to be oriented towards growth.
Yeah, and the bottom line is human nature doesn't really want to grow. Status quo is
stay in the nest, be comfortable,
stay within my own limits, all that. That's inertia, human inertia. But to build into your integrity, that you're oriented, you have a perspective to improve things, to get better, to grow yourself. If you're not growing, you're not truly living. I mean, that perspective is so. We need to cultivate that. We need to cultivate. It's really learned behavior. We have to teach people that. Right?
And growth. Like I use the example of going to the gym. If you haven't been in the gym for a while and you go work out some muscles you haven't worked out, the next day you don't feel like you feel terrible. Yeah. You feel just the opposite. You're like you can hardly get out of bed.
Right.
But that's actually a sign that you're moving towards a great goal and toward health and toward feeling better. Right. But you got to go through the pain and the embrace of the process of growth.
Yeah.
And that's not something we embrace by nature. All right, and lastly here, the ability to be transcendent, which leads to enlargement of the bigger picture and of oneself. Talk about transcendence and how that relates to integrity.
I think this is an issue which probably for us in the church, it's probably the easiest to connect with. I mean, the purpose of what we're doing. I mean, we don't.
I guess why.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we can open a business called Growing People. But to me, it's like, okay, why are we growing?
Yeah.
What's the purpose of growing?
Right. And a lot of the culture, the growth, dead ends with you or me.
Also, you can
It's
have
all
greater
self-help.
wealth.
Yeah.
You can become
Be all that
you can be. And our process of growth is because this is God's call for us to become more like Jesus.
Yeah.
We're supposed to become more like Jesus.
And we have a kingdom mandate.
We have a kingdom mandate. We have and there's a hunger and desire to learn and grow more. It's all oriented into God's call for us.
Yeah.
And I think that gives us the overall perspective and the drive for our why.
Right.
I shared at Marcus the other day, like your why, knowing your why is so important, because without your why, you cannot lead anyone to your mission, and you cannot cannot lead people to sacrifice for your mission.
And I think about this across the board. Let's say that you make product A. At the end of the day, does making that product satisfy you, bring you great contentment and joy? After you made 1 million product A's, like I think at McDonald's, okay, we're making billions of cheeseburgers, okay? Is that a reason to get out of bed in the morning? Probably not. But when, let's say you own McDonald's and you're making cheeseburgers, but you're making cheeseburgers for the glory of God. In other words, those cheeseburgers are translating into developing people, helping young people develop marketable skills, helping them understand who they are, using the profits and the influence from your business to leverage kingdom collaboration or extend ministry or grow people, lead people to Christ, magnify the Lord, reform culture. The list goes on and on. Or even in your marriage, I think how many people reach their midlife, they have a midlife crisis because they've realized that if their marriage has all been about vacations, honeymoon, raising kids, whatever, if you don't have a transcendent purpose even in your marriage, at some point you're like, well, okay, I've kind of bored with this person, or they're bored with me, or why are we even married, or actually I'm irritated with you. I'm going to go out and find a new, younger model that's going to make me happy. Right. The problem is there's no transcendent purpose to your marriage anymore, and that's why you're bored, and that's why you're unsatisfied.
If your marriage is all about satisfying you for her or for him to make you feel better, then you're gonna lose interest real quick. You cannot build something lasting.
Exactly.
It won't have integrity.
And I think that's the point. If you want the 50-year marriage anniversary, you have to have integrity in your relationship to sustain the ups and downs of 50 years with the same person.
Absolutely.
And only Jesus can do that. And that's the beauty of the gospel.
Your why. There's a book called Start With Why that really talks about if you don't have your why clear and you don't have your why big enough, you're just gonna have a hard time getting traction. And I just speak for us. We have the biggest why in the world.
Exactly.
The glory of God.
Right.
He's our Savior. The
I love
mandate
that
from
quote
heaven.
that we get into this. Redeem the cosmos for the glory of God. That's about as big as a transcendent passion in life as one could get.
But it does take integrity to connect our huge why, right, to flipping a cheeseburger. Right. And sometimes that's the tough part, is the clarity and connecting the dots for people. It's like, okay, you have a great why, good for you. I'm there cleaning the toilet. So how's that motivating?
We talk about on-ramps and off-ramps and systems and process, and I think that's a great point. We have this incredible why, and we have this person back here with all this vision and wants to get to the why, but can't figure out the steps along the way. And I think we just highlighted 6 components that help to make sure that you sustain and have the integrity to get to your why and to maximize your why, and that you don't keep hitting the lid. Yeah. And that's, I think, our burden in this podcast, and especially in the series that we've talked about over this next 6 or 7 weeks we get into this stuff, is really what is our why? Our why is to make better disciples. Our why is to hopefully help you become a better leader, a better Christian leader, because right now we're realizing that leadership is the greatest need in every arena. We have a leadership vacuum in America across the board right now. We need better leaders, and we need more leaders.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we hope this will be very, very helpful to you. Again, as always, I want to encourage you, help us get the word out on this podcast. Like it, share it, give us some comments. We're always open. We have blind spots. We want to make sure we're speaking to what your needs are and really helping you become all that Christ has called you to be. So any final word on this?
No, I'm looking forward to the rest of the series.
I know, it's going to be fun. All right, so until next Thursday, have an amazing week and live in integrity and be a leader of integrity. And of course, I encourage you, pick up that book. You'll enjoy following through with us as we work our way through the chapter. So until we meet again, have a great week. Bye-bye.